everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode. And today I have another Hobbycraft wooden puzzle kit. Anyone who watched before will know I did an owl one of these back in January, I think. And today I have the old tropical fish. Now I'm quite a big fan of these. Maybe it's the simplicity. Maybe it's just the final aesthetics, but whatever the reason, I do enjoy making these. As you can see from the kit itself, it's a case of getting the wood pieces and sliding them into the correct position to make the final product. I have done some cheaper versions of these before, but they never really worked that well. The owl, on the other hand, still stands today, many months later. It does recommend to paint and decorate, although I find just this final product pleasing enough, so I have not done either of them. It does say instructions on the reverse of packaging, which obviously you can't see while it's still in the packaging, and additionally it does say you don't need any adhesive or anything like that, but I do recommend some simple wood glue, as some of the smaller pieces sometimes don't fit together so perfectly. Sometimes they're a little bit loose and they drop off, so a little bit of glue holds them in place. So first things first, we got to open this and find out how many pieces there are. From the looks of it, there are 4 sheets of pieces, most of which are going to be the scales, I think. So it has been opened. The plastic wrapping was more difficult to remove than I thought, so I cut to when it's been done. And as you can see, you've got the picture, fish scales, many scales, body parts with additional scales, more scales, and the final body parts scales, and of course these small googly eyes. Something very pleasing about them. Additionally, just dropped it, comes with a small piece of sandpaper, which is quite useful if any of the pieces are a little bit jaggedy, or if they're too tight. You can use this to kind of open up the gaps and make them fit. Now, instructions on the reverse. Yeah. Everything you need to create a wooden work of art. Now, the instructions essentially tell you all of these pieces have either a letter, usually these are all C, or a number, 4, 11, 15, 16, etc. And all you need to do is match the numbers together and or the letters together. Now this one's a little bit easier than the owl, as the owl, all of the feathers were actually different numbers. Which made it a little bit tricky, whereas here they're all the same, which means it doesn't really matter where you put them. And these also, yep, they're all C, apart from some of the smaller ones, which are A. The most difficult part of these is kind of figuring out where you start. With something like this, probably the best thing to do is to find the biggest pieces, the tail, top fins, bottom fins, possibly the head, and put them together first. Kind of start in the middle and build outwards. So in this case, you want to look for these big pieces, and these are obviously the largest, and pop them all together. And this is simply a case of, alright, you want that one, and then hopefully they come out quite satisfyingly. There's something very satisfying about popping the pieces out. Okay, I'm going to have a look through here and see if I can figure out where is the actual best place to start, and I'll be right back. Okay, now, as you can see here, I have taken the 3 largest pieces and kind of put them together to kind of create the basic fish shape, I suppose. It does look like he's got some little hands. I'm guessing that's where the head slides on. Now the problem here is you can see there are actually 6 gaps here where pieces need to go. So obviously you can't put these together yet. You need to find the pieces that go on here and then slot the whole thing together, and then that should be the perfect base. Now the way to do this, obviously you can see this is the large piece here, and that's just numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which corresponds to these ones. You've got 7, 1, 3, and I'm guessing these ones as well. So idea is take out all these pieces, make sure you slot them in the right position across these, push the whole thing together. Hopefully that should not be too difficult. So the 7 pieces have been placed on the front head, and as you can see they create this quite pleasing effect. Now for this to work, obviously this piece needs to be able to slide onto here quite easily, although I think this may be a little bit tricky, particularly while looking through a camera. Alright, so this is truly the moment of truth, as this is obviously the base of the whole model. And obviously we don't want to break it, because if you break it at this point, everything else will fall off. Okay, this requires quite a lot of strength. Oh, it's going in. It's almost together. That's about what we're going to get. But as you can see, it has created the shape of the fish. Now, most of these slots are going to be for scales, but obviously you need the head and some of the top pieces as well. But this is essentially your base. Now, from here, you're going to need to focus on the head, the side fins, the bottom fins, etc., as the scales are going to be probably the easiest part to put on. There's just lots of them, and they are going to be the pieces that probably require glue, as they are the ones that, well, with the owl, tended to fall off. Okay, so I'm going to try and do these bottom and top fins next. Hopefully shouldn't be too tricky, as they just fit into these slots. Wish me luck. Okay, so going around the edges, attaching the correct pieces here, and as you can see, 2 clips on the top here for the top fin, and 2 on the bottom for the bottom one, and hopefully the angle and the shape should match quite nicely, although it is a little bit stiff. I will be honest. Ugh. I will say these pieces definitely go together a lot tighter than the owl did, and so far there's been no need for glue. And then this one should slot on the top. Now this wood does have a little bit of give to it, so it's not too bad to push it quite hard, but you really want to be careful, especially with these fins popping out the wood in these holes. Sometimes it's attached quite hard, and you want to be careful not to snap these pieces. Okay, there you are. Now, just need to do the same at the front and the bottom here, and possibly put the little bit of decoration on these 2 nubs here. And hopefully it should look something like this. Now I've had to zoom out a bit because the shape is now large enough to stand by itself. You can see the front fins here, they go on quite nicely, holding the balance. You want to make sure the angle for both of them is as close as possible. And the decoration has been added on the top piece. Now one thing I will mention, on the front here, both these pieces are actually exactly the same, and the numbers are 20, 20, 20, 20, so they're all the same number. In this kind of case, they could go on upside down, or they could go on the other way around, or this way. If you're never sure, always reference the picture on the front, and you can kind of see they make that kind of point down towards the face. Okay, so from here, we've got to make the face piece, and then just put on all of the decorative scales. So the face itself shouldn't be too difficult to make. The only thing you've got to be careful of is when you put the googly eyes on. So let's have a look how difficult the face is to make. Should be okay, I hope. And it has a face, yes. No eye yet, though. I also added the two side fins here, as they were the last of the non-scale pieces to do. Now, the head itself, both pieces slot onto the same piece, so it is a little bit tight and quite tricky. And in hindsight, probably should have done this bit last, as it kind of got in the way. However, I managed to get them both on, and they look quite nice. Now, again, because all the joins here are the same number, always reference the picture to make sure you're putting them on in the correct order, so you don't kind of cover the eye hole with the back plate or whatever. And there you are. That is the basic structure of the fish. All that's left to do is to add the many scales. Now, looking closely at the instructions, you can see some of the scales were numbered, which were the top 3 here, and some of them are slightly smaller, where you have C, B, and I believe A in some cases. Now, the majority of them are C, so it's probably best to find on these pieces all of the A's and B's, put them on, and then just fill everything else with the C's. I think there's only about 8 A's and about 7 B's, so it shouldn't take too long. Okay, let's see if I can actually do that. Okay, and it's almost done now. You can see all the A's and B's have been put in the correct place. Now, the only thing that I'd say was a little bit tricky was at the back here, you had to put a C underneath these 2 A's before you could put the A's in, and that's the same on both sides, so that was the only place you had to use a C before you could do anything else. Apart from that, it's quite simple, and from here you just got to put all of these C's onto all of the little joints. Shouldn't take too long and should be finished in no time. Ta-da! Yes, all the scales did fit in quite nicely, and I even popped the eyes in the correct hole. It's quite nice having the hole cut out for you, because it means you can't go very wrong with the positioning. Now, with the scales themselves, I will say start at the back here and work your way forwards, because they do interlace quite a lot, particularly at the back. Apart from that though, yeah, quite a nice and easy one to build. Points to be careful of, when you do push the 2 large pieces together, be careful not to snap these more delicate areas. And additionally, these front pieces, particularly this one, keep falling off. So I would recommend using some glue to hold it in place. Any simple craft glue will do. But there you are, a wonderful wooden tropical fish. Additionally, this one is very solid. The scales make it a very solid mass, meaning none of the smaller pieces are going to fall off, and it will survive all of the weather changes throughout the years. As I did find with the owl, switching from summer to winter, etc., caused some of the pieces to expand and fall off, meaning lots of glue was required. However, this one will not be the case. Just a bit of glue on these ones and you should be fine. The perfect tropical fish.